Hello and welcome to OUTLORE Podcast. I'm Eleanor Neale, and in today's episode, we're in Tokyo in 2016, where after having stalked his ex-girlfriend relentlessly, a 25-year-old man is now hiding in the darkest corner of an apartment building with a knife packed in his bag, waiting for her to return. Only the apartment building that he's waiting in isn't his ex-girlfriend's, it's her best friend's. And though both girls will return to this apartment at the exact same time, only one of them will make it inside alive. Outlaw. Jiang Ge and Liu Xin were best friends. They were 24-year-old post-grad students living and studying in Tokyo, Japan. Jiang Ge was single. Liu Xin, however, had a boyfriend. Only this relationship would turn into a total nightmare. And Jiang Ge, being her best friend, would inherit this nightmare as well, just by proxy. So many of us have been there. You don't like your best friend's partner, you think they're unhealthy for them, but you reluctantly support your bestie through making her own mistakes in life, and you just try your best to give her a safe space for whenever she needs it. But the case that we're about to discuss turned that up to 1,000 and left one of these girls brutally murdered. Before we continue any further, I want to warn you that we're going to be covering a lot of sensitive topics in today's case, including stalking, threatening, harassment, violence, domestic abuse, and murder. Viewer discretion is advised. This episode has actually been one of our most challenging yet most rewarding cases to research, as the majority of all of our sources were in Chinese, and though neither I nor my research girls can speak Mandarin, we really wanted to dedicate the time to understand and translate everything ourselves. But fear not, we were able to cross-check any bits of our wording or interpretations that we were unsure of with a native speaker throughout. With all that being said, before we jump into the case, I do want to quickly thank our sponsor for making this episode of Outlaw on YouTube possible, Wild. I've always loved Wild, not just for their fabulous products, but because as a company, I feel like they really align with our mission here at Outlaw to make the world a better place, and they're doing it one beauty routine at a time. You've probably already heard of Wild's natural stick deodorants, but did you know they're launching it as a roll-on? My prayers have been answered. I've always been a bit more of a roll-on girly than I have a stick deo girly. But the roll-on has all the features of all the Wild products that we know and love. Adorable little refillable container, plastic-free compostable refills with delicious scents. I've tried coconut and vanilla, and right now I'm on fresh cotton and sea salt, which is so refreshing. I'm always a fresh scent kind of girly, especially in the summer. When you're sweaty, there's nothing better than a fresh, earthy, naturally kind of smelling scent to cover up the sweat. Hey, delicious. Even just the act of changing my deodorant scent when I feel like it is such a fun way to customize your beauty routine. Wild has made me excited about deodorant, which I guess is a strange thing to say, but it's true. When you've reached the end of your refill, you simply open up your cutie little case, you switch it out, slot a new one back in, and Bob's your uncle. This is that easy. This roll-on not only feels really nourishing, but it actually works in my daily routine, which, if you've been on a natural deodorant journey, you'll know that that's quite hard to come by. But trust me, making the switch is so worth it if you haven't already. Not only is she free from aluminium salts and parabens, but she's made up of 95% natural ingredients too. She's vegan, she's completely cruelty-free, she's amazing. Plus, every time you buy from them, Wild actually plants a tree, which we always need more of, hey? And so far, they've saved 1.6 million pounds of single-use plastic from landfill. And that's amazing. So if you like what you hear and you want to get your hands on some of Wild's products for yourself, they're very kindly giving you guys 20% off all Wild products or off of your first subscription when you use my code EleanorNealeTeam. It's for a limited time only, so grab it while you still can by scanning the QR code on the screen right now, or you can click the link down below in the description and make sure you're using code EleanorNealeTeam. Thanks again to Wild for sponsoring this episode of Outlaw on YouTube, and now back to the case. So let's start from the very beginning, shall we? I want to give you some background on our two girlies living in Tokyo. Let's start with Jiang Ge, who was born in 1992 and raised by a single mother named Jiang Ge Liu Xin in an area on China's most northeastern coast called Qingdao. Jiang Ge did have a dad, but her mum had divorced him long ago when Jiang Ge was still a small child, and after that, he never really made any effort to reach out. But that didn't really matter because the mother and daughter duo had each other, and their bond was so strong. They really were each other's worlds. Jiang Ge would tell her mum, "You have to live until you're 80, and I'll live just until I'm 70, so we don't have to be apart in the afterlife for too long." Such a sweet and caring child. She would always tell her mum that when she was older, she wanted to work so hard so that she could support the both of them one day. And as she grew older, Jiang Ge found a real love for anime. In school, she wasn't particularly top of anything in the class, top of class in anything, should I say, apart from when it came to Japanese. That was her best scoring subject, and she was quite passionate about it, I think especially because she loved anime. And so her mum suggested that she should consider going abroad to Japan to study. Realistically, they didn't have the money to actually make this happen, but her mum was going to make it happen. She always put Jiang Ge first. And so despite their neighbours kind of judging her for trying to allow Jiang Ge to live, quote, above their means, she sold their home in order to put her daughter on that 3-hour flight to Tokyo. For the first time ever, this inseparable mama and daughter would be apart. But it was for exciting reasons. In 2015, Jiang Ge enrolled at a language school for a year to complete a Japanese speaking course, so that then she would have all the necessary qualifications to apply to Tokyo universities.
中国からの留学生やかと申します。絵は絵と川の絵です。川は歌の地です。
The language school had a dorm where the students would all live, and it was there where Jiang Ge would meet her future best friend, Liu Xin. The girls got chatting and they realised they actually had so much in common. It turned out that not only were they both from China, but both specifically from Qingdao. They'd only lived about 20 minutes away from each other. What are the chances? Liu Xin had moved to Tokyo a year before to attend that same language course. However, it was going to take her 2 years to complete, unlike Jiang Ge, who was like super brainy and she was completing it in only 1 year. Just to note, going forward, we're going to be referring to the girls as just Jiang and Liu, as that's how they're referred to in the reports that are retelling the case. But by 2016, the girls were super close, and although they were now attending different universities now that they'd finished the language course, they still hung out together all the time. Jiang seemed to be thriving out in Tokyo. Her grades were amazing. She would call her mum to catch up every single day. She was making friends. She was really happy. And things seemed to be going just as well for Liu as well. She was really happy at this point in time, especially because she had met a boy, a lad from her class named Chen Shifeng. He was also a Chinese national from Yulin, and he was 1 year older than both of the girls. He seemed to be like a social butterfly, and he really took a liking to Liu. Things went pretty darn fast for them. They started dating, and within 3 months, Liu had moved in with Chen. But no kidding, after literally a week of living together, she realized that she had made a huge mistake, because Chen was a nightmare. He was always picking fights with her. He was rapidly turning into a control freak over Liu. He was one of those people that thought everyone else was the problem and never himself, and she really needed to get away from him. By the last week of August 2016, things reached a new height. During an argument, Chen grabbed Liu by the wrist and stared at her in a way that chilled her to her core. One of those stares where you can just feel the anger, the insanity, the demonic energy radiating out of someone. This incident really scared Liu. She didn't know what Chen was capable of, but she didn't want to stick around and find out. So she told him it was over. And he took it very badly. I mean, like we said, he was a total control freak. So, I mean, they do tend to go insane when the subject of their control tries to break free. So he starts begging for her to stay. He's physically blocking the door and not letting her leave his place. She had to literally escape and run out of the door while his back was turned. And even then, when he saw her make a run for it, he chased her out into the street. Liu had to scream for help and alert the neighbours, and this finally put him off of chasing her, and finally then she got away. Her plan was to go straight to Jiang's house, her best friend, but she forgot that Jiang's mama was actually visiting from China at that point in time, so there wasn't enough space for her to stay over. So Liu crashed at a different friend's house for a few days until Jiang had finally gotten some space for her, and on the 3rd of September, Liu officially moved into Jiang's apartment in Nakano. Technically, Jiang wasn't allowed to have a roommate at this place, but this was her best friend, and she was more than willing to help her in her time of need. But this would be a favour that Liu, unfortunately, would fail to pay back. According to Jiang's mum, Liu didn't do a damn thing around the house to help out. Jiang was the one that cooked and cleaned and did everything for both of them. Liu would even make little jokes here and there all the time about how she was fully aware that the workload was uneven. But she just kind of thought it was funny. She thought it was funny and cute that her best friend was doing it all for her, and she wasn't motivated to do any of it herself. Meanwhile, Chen hasn't given up on Liu. In fact, he'd been relentless in his pursuit of winning her back. He'd pulled almost every trick in the book, and I think he could tell that none of it was working. But he had a couple tricks left up his sleeve. He still owed her some money. How could she possibly say no to meetings so that he could pay her back? He'd also bought her a designer wallet to try and win her over again, to try and love bomb her. And she accepted the wallet. I mean, she is just a girl. But this made her think that the persisting and the relentlessness was slowly working. It was wearing her down. And so he kept going. He was getting more and more intense. His control was ramping up once again, and he began monitoring Liu's movements and routines. And that is how he discovered that she was now living at Jiang's apartment, which meant that neither of the girls were safe at home anymore. On the 2nd of November 2016, around 3 p.m, Liu was home alone when the doorbell rang. Jiang was supposed to be in uni all day, so she knew that it probably wasn't her, and that was when panic set in, because the next person that Liu thought of it being was actually the landlord. And remember, Jiang isn't allowed to have a roommate. It was kind of illegal for Liu to be staying there. So she froze, and she didn't answer the door. But this visitor kept persisting, ringing the bell again and again. So now Liu is overwhelmed, she's panicking, and she texts Jiang, who also believed that it was probably the landlord. And so she told Liu to just pretend to be her sister, who's over from China, say that you can't speak Japanese, and just tell him that I'm on my way home and I'll deal with it. But just as Jiang sent that message, Liu realised that it definitely wasn't the landlord on the other side of the door, because he spoke to her. He said, "I know you're home alone." And she knew that voice. It was Chen, her ex, the control freak that had been stalking her for months. And so Liu texted Jiang asking if she could rush home anyway because she was really scared of Chen, especially now that he's out there saying, "I know you're in there." That's like a horror movie. That's terrifying. So Jiang texts her back saying, "Go into the other room and shut the door so that he can't hear you. He can't hear your movements." And Liu did exactly that. But Chen wasn't leaving. Jiang said that she would call the police, but Liu actually begged her not to. She thought that they would both get in trouble for her staying over there illegally. So instead, the original plan remained. Jiang would come home to support her and hopefully clear Chen off. So by 4:15 p.m, Chen had been stood outside ringing that doorbell for over an hour, just trying to intimidate Liu and scare her. And then Jiang arrived home, and an argument broke out between her and Chen in the hallway. Only after half an hour of arguing with his ex-girlfriend's best friend did Chen back down and leave. The girls both had plans for the rest of the evening. Liu had work, and Jiang had to get back to class. I mean, she'd actually left for this to come and protect her friend. So together, they both left the house again and walked the 10-minute journey to Shinjuku Station. But they hadn't walked alone. Unbeknownst to them, Chen had tailed them the whole way there, and now that the girls were splitting into different directions, he was following only Liu. At 4:43 p.m, CCTV footage actually picked up images of Chen following her while simultaneously sending her threatening messages, telling her that he would send all of her intimate naked pictures to her parents if she didn't take him back. Liu tried her best to ignore all of these texts and just arrive at her shift on time to waitress at a Chinese restaurant. So she gets there and she gets to work. And about an hour into her shift at 6 p.m, she spotted Chen lingering outside of her workplace. He really was trying every method at his disposal to intimidate and torment her. And so she decided that, well, she's going to try and do something to torment him back. She went and asked a male co-worker to pretend to be her boyfriend, and she made sure that Chen could see them both. I even saw some people saying that she'd taken the co-worker outside to where Chen was standing and told him to his face, "This is my new man," which finally got him to leave. I mean, we weren't 100% able to verify that, but a few sources did say it, and I thought it was great. I had to mention. An hour later, Chen sent Liu a message saying, "If you chose to be with him, I will do whatever it takes. Essentially, if I can't have you, no one can." While researching the prolonged stalking and intimidation that took place in this case, we knew that we wanted to shine a light on a charity that helps victims of exactly that. The Suzy Lamplugh Trust is a charity that not only works with victims, but also advocates to change the law and teach people personal safety methods, how to identify stalking, and even how to be an active bystander if you witness harassment or stalking in real life. The charity was founded by the parents of Suzy Lamplugh. If you're not from the UK, then you might not be aware of this, but Suzy Lamplugh's true crime case is a huge one over here. She was only 25 years old when she had recently begun working at an estate agent's in London, when in 1986, after she showed a man around a potential new house, she never returned back to the office. It was believed that Suzy had been stalked and chosen by this man long before he even booked her for a house viewing, which had been his final goal to get her alone. Suzy Lamplugh has been presumed dead for a very, very long time, and police are pretty damn sure they know exactly who did this to her. There was only one suspect, a man named John Cannan, who had a history of abductions and murders and even more. But he died last year, and Suzy Lamplugh's case remains unsolved. At the time of her disappearance, Suzy wouldn't have been equipped to recognise dodgy patterns and suspicious people, and although she might have felt uneasy, she wouldn't have realised the seriousness of someone's weird behaviour, which is why her parents began this charity in response to help as many people as possible. On the website, you can find access to the National Stalking Helpline and a range of resources if you yourself are worried about being stalked or you know someone that is. This is a UK-based charity, but for international listeners of Outlaw Podcast, if you're worried about anything related to today's case, I strongly urge you to look up stalking helplines and organisations in your own country. Please, please do reach out to one. That is literally what they're created for. No concern is too silly. You're not bothering them. Don't convince yourself that it's probably nothing. It's always better to reach out and be safe rather than sorry. The link for today's charity will be in the description of this episode, along with our link tree that has a bunch of useful resources in there. Now, back to where we left off. So, as I said, Chen's last message to Liu after seeing her with her co-worker read, "If you chose to be with him, I will do whatever it takes." And he was going to follow through on that, because at 9 p.m. that same night, he left his apartment, now wearing a hoodie, a cap, and a backpack. And in that backpack, he had packed a knife. About 30 minutes later, he went into a 7-Eleven to buy a bottle of whiskey, and then he went to the station and purchased a one-way subway ticket heading in the direction of Jiang's apartment. At 10:57 p.m, he arrived at their stop. He got off the train and walked towards their building, and once he arrived, he just kind of hung around, scaling the place, figuring out entry and exit points, any hidden or blind spots. He found the perfect hiding spot on the 3rd floor, and he just staked out there for a while with his bottle of whiskey until the girls returned home. Obviously, given what had happened that day already, the two girls were on edge, especially Liu, and so she'd asked Jiang to wait for her at the station so that they could walk home together, just in case Chen was still following her. Jiang arrived at the station first, and she was just gonna chill and wait for Liu for a little while, and bless her, Jiang went and bought some wontons for dinner for Liu, and she texted her saying, "I'll find somewhere warm to wait." So Jiang went and sat inside a shop, and she called her mum for a while. They were catching up. She was telling her about the crazy events of today and all about her best friend Liu's crazy ex. And Jiang's mum told her not to get involved. Then they just kind of had a general catch-up. Jiang apparently talked a lot about moving back to China after her studies were completed. She was really excited to be back together again. Her mum and daughter duo was going to be back. Meanwhile, Liu had finished her shift at this point in time. She was on the train home, ready to meet Jiang at the station, and she is still receiving texts from Chen. It's threat after threat, even in the form of voice notes now. He's saying things like, "I will do anything," recklessly. Liu ignored all of these messages, and she didn't tell Jiang that he was still blowing up her phone. She was just kind of hoping that Chen was gonna run out of steam and give up soon. Little did she know, Chen had been sending those texts from his hiding spot in their building, waiting until they got home. At midnight, after Jiang had waited a whole hour for her in the train station, Liu finally arrived, and the two of them set off walking home together. It was going to take about 15 minutes. Their apartment was actually on the second floor, which was one floor down from where Chen had been waiting, getting drunker and more angry as each minute went by. When the girls arrived at the building, both of them actually had to use the bathroom badly. Liu had apparently just come on her period during the commute, and so she said that she would run ahead to go and change and grab sanitary products quickly so that Jiang could use the bathroom after her. So Liu runs into the apartment alone, and the front door shut behind her. Usually this wouldn't be a problem because the door doesn't lock automatically. Jiang should have been able to just open it and follow her straight in when she got there. But that didn't happen. Jiang found herself outside, unable to get into her own apartment. And what happened next is plain awful. As Liu finished up in the bathroom, she could hear commotion happening outside the front door. It was Jiang, screaming with terror. She hadn't followed her inside. So Liu ran to the door and tried to let Jiang in, but she couldn't. She managed to actually open it by about 30 centimeters, but then she said something pushed against it and slammed it shut again. And from that point, she believed that something was leaning on the door to keep it closed, to keep her from helping Jiang. Liu had no idea what was actually going on out in the hallway, and she couldn't see through the peephole in the door either because it was always blocked. This was like a long-running maintenance issue. But all she could tell from those screams on the other side of the door is that her best friend was in distress. Something bad was happening. And then Jiang stopped screaming and stopped responding completely. And that was when Liu knew that she needed to call the police. And she had good reason to suspect that something very serious had happened, because on the other side of that door, her best friend was being murdered by Liu's own ex-boyfriend, Chen Shifeng. It seems that during that brief moment that Liu had run inside ahead of Jiang, Chen had stepped out of the shadows and grabbed her. An argument and a struggle broke out between them. Jiang was screaming for help, and then Chen pulled out the knife. He began stabbing her over and over again in the neck, around 12 times, before quickly fleeing and leaving this young woman alone, bleeding out in the hallway. The police arrived on the scene and called for an ambulance, while they instructed Liu to stay inside the flat. But by 2:25 a.m., after being rushed to hospital on the 3rd of November 2016, Jiang was pronounced dead. She was only 24 years old, and her death was just so sudden. One minute she was calling her mum, excited to move home and be reunited, and now she was gone. The only reason that she'd ever crossed paths with her killer is because she had been a good friend, because she had protected Liu, she'd fed her, waited for her no matter how long she took so that she could walk her home safely. Jiang had dropped classes and rushed home to defend her, and for all of this, Jiang would now lose her life. That same day, Liu was taken to the police station and questioned. She told the police that she wasn't sure what had happened outside the door. She didn't see a single second of it due to the blocked peephole, but she swore one thing for sure, that she never intentionally locked Jiang outside. It wasn't Liu's fault that Jiang couldn't get inside the apartment. Liu told the police that while she was in the bathroom, she heard the screams, and so as quickly as she could, she rushed to help. And like we said earlier, she told them that she had managed to open the front door about 30 centimetres before it slammed back onto her, and then she couldn't get it open again after that. It seemed that there was something leaning against it, something blocking it from opening. So Liu called out to Jiang, who was screaming in distress on the other side. She said, "What's wrong?" And she got no response. So then she called again, saying, "Where are you? Don't block the door, open it quickly." But again, no response. Police also spoke to the girl's next door neighbour, who claimed to have heard everything. She was an older lady who was home alone that night, and she said that she'd heard multiple people running in the hallway, then a woman screaming. And since this neighbour's peephole wasn't blocked, she went over to her door and she had a look what was going on outside, and apparently she saw a strange man standing there. She didn't mention seeing any violence or any blood or a knife or anything, just the strange man was standing outside on the second floor landing while this screaming was also going on. I guess the neighbour's story and Liu's don't perfectly match up with timing and stuff. Does that mean that there's something missing? I guess we'll see. Back in China, Jiang's mum received a call from someone working at her daughter's language school informing her of the awful murder. At first, her mum didn't believe it, because how could Jiang have been murdered? She was a good girl who minded her business. Why would anyone ever want to hurt her? She also couldn't verify this person that was calling her from her daughter's school, so she thought, well, maybe it could be some kind of fucked up scam call. And so her mum came off the phone and she tried her best to text Jiang and call her, but she got no response. When she got off the phone, she tried to call Jiang herself. She tried to text and call as many times as she could, but Jiang wasn't picking up anything. She wasn't responding to anything. And it finally began to set in for her mum that something bad must have happened. Knowing that her daughter was never far from her best friend, she began calling and messaging Liu for help now. But all Liu said in her response was, "I'm sorry, Auntie. I don't know how to reply. All I can do now is try my best to help the police solve the case." Now, this wasn't quite confirmation of murder, but it certainly was confirmation of a police investigation. Something was seriously wrong. And as that day went on, more calls came in to Jiang, who was home in China, including one from the Chinese embassy in Japan, talking about her daughter. Later that same day, Jiang's mother and Liu's parents met up at the local police station, and a video call was set up between Liu and her own parents. But once she was on the phone, Jiang's mother grabbed it and desperately pleaded with Liu for answers. And all Liu could say through her tears was that Jiang was in the hospital. And it was finally in that moment that it all felt real for Jiang's mum, and she collapsed in the police station. But something that stuck out to me as we were researching this case was that when Liu's parents got confirmation that their daughter was fine, they just went home. They left Jiang's mum there alone, sobbing, just telling her, "Don't worry, I'm sure it's nothing." Like, why not wait and support this woman? Why not wait to find out that both girls are okay? I just can't imagine being a parent, worried sick, and seeing another parent in that exact same way, and just leaving them all alone to fester in that worry. It just makes me so sad. That night, Jiang's mum was only growing more and more frustrated and devastated. Not only was she dealing with the raw agony of losing her daughter in this way, but she also felt like her daughter's supposed best friend Liu was giving her the cold shoulder at a time when she needed it the most. At a time when she needed her the most, even. She felt like Liu was ignoring her, basically. She wasn't responding to Jiang's mother's texts. She wasn't picking up her calls. Honestly, Liu also felt like Jiang's mother was blaming her for this. And being so honest, she was also grieving her best friend. She was going through a very difficult time. Everyone was right now. But Liu could tell that Jiang's mum was getting frustrated. And so the next day she texted her saying, "I know your heart is broken right now and you hate me. It's okay for you to hate me. We'll resolve things later. But right now we must stay united and find the murderer. I've been doing everything to help the police. I'll tell you everything after." For 2 more days, Liu stopped responding to Jiang's mum, who was still growing more inconsolable and panicked and desperate for answers that she just wasn't being told. When Jiang's mum flew into Tokyo to identify her daughter's dead body, she also tried to contact Liu to meet up. She had a lot of questions, obviously, and she wanted to hear about the night that Jiang died. But Liu continued to ignore and avoid all of her attempts to reach out. Jiang's mother felt like this was very intentional and very suspicious. Above all, she felt like it was totally unfair, and she hoped that the general public would feel the same way. And so with that, she took to social media. Jiang's mother began posting on Weibo, which is one of the biggest socials in China. She explained the situation and the murder story and added, "The murderer is still at large. It's suspected the murderer is the ex-boyfriend of Liu Xin, who was her roommate. Please seek justice for Jiang Ge." I mean, it probably wasn't the best idea to start posting online so quickly, especially using full names, because 1, obviously the murderer is still at large and he is unpredictable at this point in time. But also, 2, because obviously it caused the general public to prejudge this whole situation and prejudge Liu as being guilty, or at least having some sort of connection to Jiang's murder, having some sort of fault there. This put her in the firing line and put her in people's suspicions. And now, Liu was catching heat online so soon after witnessing her best friend's murder from the other side of a door. It hardly seemed fair. But at the same time, Jiang's mum's world was imploding, consumed by unimaginable grief and frustration. You can understand her haste to get answers and justice. It's really tricky. This situation is awful for everyone, but in some ways it is being made worse. But after all of these postings on Weibo, it did actually trigger a response from Liu, who sent Jiang's mum a long message asking her to stop harassing her with texts. She said that she is helping police in every way that she can, and she isn't allowed to talk to anyone about that night or the investigation. Liu also pleaded with Jiang's mum to stop posting about her on Weibo. She explained that it's inciting hate against her, it's causing extreme stress that she didn't need after already dealing with the trauma of that night. But the internet and the public seemed firmly on Jiang's mum's side with this. Although everyone obviously thought that Chen was responsible for the murder, everyone knew that. But people still wanted Liu to take some kind of responsibility as well. They speculated that maybe she had intentionally swapped places with Jiang that night on purpose, that she had sacrificed her friend to save her own life and locked her out to die. The public didn't know these girls' characters, and so to them, anything was possible. They were theorizing about everything. After more Weibo posts, Liu texted Jiang's mum once again saying, "I am doing my best to cooperate with the police every day. Now the murderer is still unknown. I'm not meeting with you, not because I'm hiding or because I'm afraid to see you, but because there's too many details I can't give you, and I can't provide any explanation until the murderer is caught. If you know details of the case, I know you will spread it online, and the more information you spread, the harder it is to catch the killer. And now, because of everything you're posting, I'm physically not allowed to meet with anyone but the police. You're causing people to be suspicious of me, which is causing harm. Since you came to Japan, I've been so worried about you and asking the police how you are. But you let netizens slander me like this. I don't hate you, but you've really hurt me, and I'll never see you again once all of this has been resolved. Don't worry, I will fight to the death for Jiang. I will find the murderer. This is the only thing I can do." Jiang's mum replied, expressing her frustration that she just wants to know what happened. And Liu tried telling her, well, I'm a victim in this too. But it just wasn't enough for Jiang's mum, who kept pressing her. She wanted Chen's personal information, which the police had told Liu that she wasn't allowed to give out. It got to a point where Liu was so frustrated that she actually told Jiang's mum that if she persisted posting online, then she would have to stop helping the police to solve Jiang's murder. Liu then blocked Jiang's mum and stopped responding. Liu's whole family also blocked Jiang's mum from being able to contact them as well. And then Liu started to speak out online herself. She felt like she had to share her own perspective now to take back some kind of control. She begged people online to stop speculating and harassing her, asking them to try to find sympathy for her as well. But people seem to have already made their mind up. They decided that she wasn't emotional enough. She wasn't the perfect griever, so she must be guilty of something, or at least suspicious. I mean, I actually hate when people do this, when people overanalyze someone's grief, because grief can look very awkward and ugly, and that's not anyone's fault. It doesn't mean that they're hiding something or that they secretly don't care. It just means that that is how the grief and the trauma has affected them. Before being blocked, Jiang's mum had actually invited Liu to attend the funeral, which was being held in Tokyo on the 11th of November. She'd invited Liu to actually say goodbye to Jiang privately before the cremation as well, but Liu never showed. And this was the final straw for Jiang's mum. She kind of thought, well, how can you really care about my daughter if you don't even want to say goodbye? Well, Liu claims that she did actually attend the funeral, but apparently she stayed outside, out of sight of everyone else, as the police were stressing that she would draw media attention. And honestly, they were also nervous how Jiang's mum would react when she saw Liu in person. Bearing in mind what I said about not judging how someone grieves, but Jiang's mother had been a little explosive in her emotions, so there's no doubt that it would have been better to keep her away from Liu for the sake of peace on the day of Jiang's funeral. On the 24th of November, a few weeks after Jiang's murder, Chen Shifeng was arrested. He had been the main suspect since the days after the murder. Police had been investigating him this entire time. They had discovered the string of threatening messages that he'd been sending Liu in the days leading up to and on the day of Jiang's murder, and this was enough to bring him in for questioning. But they did need a little more time and a little more evidence to officially arrest and charge him with the murder. And when that arrest came, Jiang's mum went into total overdrive wanting information from Liu, and after a lot of persistence, Liu gave in. She told her where Chen's family were living at. She said that he had a brother, that he had a sister as well, and she even helped Jiang's mum to find an image of Chen online. But after doing all of this, which would have been against police's orders, I'm sure, Liu stopped replying and went cold on Jiang's mum once again. By the 14th of December, as Jiang's mum returned to China with her daughter's ashes in hand, Chen Shifeng was officially charged with the murder. Liu also returned to China around the same time, but despite moving back home and being so close to where Jiang's mum lived, Liu continued to ignore her requests to meet. Instead, Jiang's mum spent the Lunar New Year alone, in an empty house, listening to the sound of firecrackers outside all night, desperately trying to find the will to stay alive through all of this. As the days passed, she had experienced waves of wanting to give up. But then she would be hit with the intense determination to seek justice for her daughter. It was a purpose that she needed to stay alive for. In May 2017, the tension between Jiang's mum and Liu reached a head once again, and Jiang's mum decided to dox Liu and her whole family, posting their home address and personal information online for anyone to find. By now, the case had quite the online following, so this post went viral. I have a feeling that Jiang's mum knew that that was going to happen. Maybe she hoped that it would force Liu to meet with her. Of course, Liu's family immediately received a wave of abuse and they called Jiang's mum up threatening legal action. Liu's mum even snapped down the call saying something along the very shitty lines of, maybe it was just her destiny to have a short life. She's not dead because of my daughter. And that was it for Jiang's mum. After months of them refusing to help her, refusing to talk to her, and now saying this, she went one step further once again. And what's one step further than doxing someone online? Well, printing out all that personal information on flyers and literally handing them out in public. Like, I know that we said that we can't judge people's grief, but this is becoming undefendable at this point. Like, I do not approve of Jiang's mum's methods. By August 2017, Liu was under so much stress. Not only had the public and the internet turned on her, but now they knew her fucking home address, and she feared that she was in danger at all times. She'd even lost her job at this point over how viral this case had become and how hated she was in the nation. And only now that she was at her very lowest, everything crumbling around her, did she agree to meet up with Jiang's mum. And this meeting would be filmed by a production company. Liu turned up to the meeting kind of a wreck. There'd been so much sentiment online saying that she lacked emotion, she wasn't emotional enough, but from what I see here, she is full of emotion. She was wearing a cap and they blur a lot of her face for privacy, but you can very clearly see her distraught expression through. Jiang's mum tells her, take off your cap, which she does. Liu's grabbing and scratching at her arms, rocking back and forth nervously, and she's telling Jiang's mum that she's so sorry. Mama is insisting that Liu must have seen something on the other side of the door. What did she see when she opened it and eventually left? Liu tells her, I was really scared. I didn't go out. I really didn't know that it was Chen Shifeng who was killing her outside. I've got to be honest, I am really struggling with this because I don't believe Liu when she says that she didn't know that it was Cheng who was being violent outside. I mean, he's literally been stalking and incessantly threatening her all day. Sure, she couldn't see anything through the peephole, but she swore that she never locked that door, which is what everyone had been saying online, that she locked her best friend out there as bait for her violent ex-boyfriend. And Jiang's mum was one of the people that was quite convinced of this. She demanded answers from Liu, asking, why was Jiang Ge killed? I just want the truth. I just want to know what her final moments were like. I only exposed all of your information because you refused to ever tell me. She's trying to point out that it took a public smear campaign and doxing to get any real answers, or a face-to-face meet like the one that they finally had. Jiang's mum told Liu, I never wanted to hurt you or hate you. I just wanted you to tell me what happened. Why not do that? Why block me and have your family do the same? By this point in the meeting, Jiang's mum is stood up, she's yelling, Liu's cowering and crying, but Jiang's mum held a brave face, telling her, you're not crying right now over Jiang, you're crying over yourself, because you care more about your reputation than my daughter's life. Towards the end of the meeting, Liu hands Jiang's mum a keyring and some Polaroids of Jiang from when they'd lived together in Japan, and Mama just breaks down. It's honestly such a hard watch as this meeting between Liu and Jiang. Me and my research girlies genuinely had like tears in our eyes as we watched the full meeting. Liu tries to hug her at the end, but Jiang's mum is telling her through sobs, I want you to leave now. I'm begging you, leave now. And after that, in a one-on-one with the journalist, Liu admitted that she had never gone outside once she ran indoors that night. Even after Chen had run away, even when police arrived, she remained inside the apartment, which apparently police had instructed her to do. She only left that apartment after they had taken Jiang away to hospital. Maybe this could explain her saying that she had no idea what the hell was happening on the other side of the door, but I just think she must have known. She must have known. In August 2017, with Chen's trial set for December in Tokyo, Back home in China, Jiang's mum had begun campaigning for him to receive the death penalty. And very quickly, she got 4.5 million signatures from people both in China and Japan. 4.5 million is a crazy number. But when the trial actually began later that year, things were unpredictable, to say the least. So now it's time to talk about Chen Shifeng. I know that most of this episode is focused on Liu and Jiang's mum. We've barely actually spoken about the killer, but that's because this is genuinely how the case unfolded in real time as well. He was pushed to the background in some ways. But let's bring him into focus for a moment. Let's start with how he actually implicated his ex-girlfriend, Liu. Everything I'm about to tell you is what he told the police during the investigation and his questioning. He said that the two girls had been walking to their apartment when they had both noticed him following behind, and that was when they both started sprinting for the door. He said that Liu got there first, and as soon as she entered, she turned around and pushed Jiang out of the way, out into the hallway, and slammed the door shut, locking her out there with the man who would soon murder her. He said that Jiang began screaming, even more so when she noticed the knife in his hand, and so he just grabbed her and held her as he banged on the door, waiting for Liu to open it. It seemed like he was almost using Jiang like as a threat, as a ransom, but when he realized that Liu wasn't going to open the door, and when he realized that she was calling the police in there, he began stabbing Jiang to the point where he knew that she was going to die. He then didn't stick around. He ran away immediately to avoid being caught. I mean, I wonder how that worked out for him, hey? So that's everything that he said in the police interviews. But now that he was at trial, he changed his story quite drastically. He was actually about to start claiming self-defense. He said that the knife that he used to kill Jiang wasn't even his knife. He said that Liu had opened the door and handed Jiang the knife, presumably to use on Chen, but he said that he grabbed it, and during an explosive argument, Jiang got hurt. What do you mean Jiang got hurt? She was stabbed 12 times in the neck. That will likely never be considered an act of self-defense, and I think it's egregious to even try and claim that. Despite his change in plea, the evidence was stacked against him. He had sent threats, he had stalked, he had argued. There were CCTV images capturing his every move, even outside the apartment that night. The neighbor had identified him. He had identified himself. He was guilty. And that early detail about Liu pushing Jiang out of the door so that she could lock it quicker was kind of skipped over and lost by the time that the trial came. Everyone was so focused on Chen's changing story that they forgot about that one detail, that Liu supposedly pushed Jiang out into that hallway. And maybe this is what Jiang's mum had known on all along. Or maybe not known, but clearly she always felt that something wasn't adding up about Liu's story. And maybe this detail could be exactly it. On the 20th of December 2017, Chen Shifeng was sentenced to 20 years in a Japanese prison for Jiang Ge's murder. He would then be deported back over to China after his release. And I think he kind of got like the minimum sentence that he was potentially looking at. I think it was 20 years to life. The death penalty was never really on the cards for this case, despite Jiang's mum's campaigning. They do have the death penalty over in Japan, but it's very rarely given out. It's reserved more for like multiple murders, serial killers, ones that were totally like planned and aggravated, which they couldn't fully prove that Chen had done here, especially given the fact that Liu had probably been the person that he initially wanted to kill. She was probably the person that he brought the knife out to do something with, so his murder of Jiang could be interpreted as more of a last-minute choice. But 20 years, regardless, is in no way enough. He was planning to kill someone that day, no matter what. And 20 years for Jiang's entire life is far too short. During his time in prison, there's actually been more history of Chen's that's come to light. Other violent relationships were uncovered. Liu was not the first and only woman to fall victim to Chen, the control freak boyfriend. And you're probably thinking around this point in the episode that this is where the case ends, right? He's in prison, it's all solved. Wrong. Liu Xin, the woman begging to be seen as a victim, was actually about to be exposed for some very sinister behaviour. In February 2018, Jiang's mum's phone rang with a message. It was from Liu. It was the first time that she'd heard from her since that meeting that was filmed about 6 months prior, and we know that that hadn't ended on a good note. Liu had unblocked Jiang's mum specifically to send her a message wishing her a happy Lunar New Year. She wished prosperity on her whole family, which could be interpreted as a little bit backhanded because Jiang's mum didn't really have any family left. Her only family, her daughter, had been brutally murdered. But, regardless, Liu wishes prosperity for her family and even added some extra love on the end for all of Jiang's mum's wishes to come true and for money to roll in. This entire text was so out of the blue, and it felt in very poor taste to Jiang's mum. She responded to Liu asking, "Why are you sending me this? How can you be wishing lots of money for me when you know that I'm devastated and grieving? My daughter has been murdered." And from there, the two of them got into a huge argument over text about what is the right thing to do in this situation. And once again, Jiang's mum was blocked by Liu. But it gets even darker and quite cryptic. Around that same time, Liu allegedly sent Jiang's mum a delivery of a duck neck and pigeon meat, which is apparently very fucked up to do. You see, in Chinese cultures, gifts and actions often contain a lot of different meanings. For example, you can't gift someone an umbrella, especially in relationships, because it's considered really bad luck. And so sending grieving families the correct gifts with the correct meanings is not only super important, but also widely understood and known. And so to send any sort of meat to a grieving family anyway is considered completely tone deaf, given the fact that meat signifies things like indulgence and richness and celebration. But to pick these two exact meats, pigeon and duck neck, is what's specifically twisted about this, because Jiang Ge's name in Chinese is said to sound a little bit like pigeon, and the cause of her death was multiple stab wounds to her neck. It's almost like Liu is taunting Jiang's mum. I know I'm partial to do a little bit of reaching sometimes personally, but this is actually a bit fucked up. On Weibo, an account that appears to be Liu's has also messaged Jiang's mum asking her, "Are blood wontons delicious?" Another message read, "I see your popularity is fading. I came here to help you, otherwise you won't be able to write any more articles. What a pity." It's the blood wontons thing that gets me the most, because that is the food, the specific food that Jiang had purchased for Liu on the night that Jiang was murdered. That was an act of care that she had done it. It's just so randomly dark and unprovoked if this was Liu sending these messages. She even started calling Jiang's mum horrible things like foul and vile in her posts on Weibo. She was so nasty about her, and unbelievably, these kind of posts were actually gaining Liu some favour online. It seemed that a small table had turned. While it used to feel like the whole internet hated her, now more and more people were hearing her out, and soon Liu was gaining fans because she was being shitty. During 2018, Liu was chatting with a supporter of hers online when she revealed a brand new detail in the case that had never been heard before. Apparently, after she called the police that night that Jiang was murdered, Liu then called her place of work to ask for advice from a senior. Liu wanted to know if she was liable for anything bad that might have potentially happened outside of the door. But I thought she had no idea what was going on outside of the door. Why would she need legal advice in that minute? Oh, just think, like, her best friend is actively bleeding out, brutalized. Her body is still warm on the other side of that door, and Liu is checking herself legally. But I guess no one spotted that detail other than us, because Liu was only gaining more and more supporters. She gained enough traction online that she's actually able to monetize her posts on Weibo now and make money out of all of this, out of being shitty to Jiang's mum. She actually began directing all of her followers to join her in questioning and harassing Jiang's mum online. Like, that is just senseless bullying at this point. Eventually, Liu's own account was banned at the end of 2018, I'm assuming for inciting all of this bullying. A criminal investigation was even opened into some of the biggest trolls who were working on behalf of Liu. 2 of her die-hard supporters were sent to prison for a year each for all of their abuse towards Jiang's mum. It was that bad. Jiang's mum also ended up suing Liu so publicly that she actually had to change her name. And then, in 2021, she had her in court again to begin the trial of Liu's culpability in Jiang's death. This wasn't a trial to send Liu to prison. That wasn't possible. The criminal investigation was over. It was all solved. All of that happened back in Japan. But now, back home in China, a civil case was able to happen, meaning Jiang's mum was suing Liu for a lot of money, claiming that she was partially responsible for Jiang's death and therefore needed to pay compensation. Now, when this civil case began, Liu didn't turn up to the trial. But that didn't affect the proceedings, and something big was about to be released. The calls that Liu had made that night to Japanese police. She made 2 calls to the police, the first at 16 minutes past midnight, and a second call 6 minutes later. But it's that first call that really threw Liu's credibility into question. In it, she is shouting through the door, and what she says can be interpreted in 2 different ways depending on the context, but she's either saying, "The door is locked, stop being a nuisance," or "The door is locked, don't try anymore." Either way, she's telling whoever's behind the door with Jiang that it's locked and to go away. It's locked. Like, how many more times do I need to say it? She has confirmed with her own words that she had locked the door. Jiang was locked out there in the hallway with her murderer. Something also very important to note is that she's shouting all of this through the door in Chinese. Yet they're living in Japan, and she's always said that she had no idea who the attacker was on the other side of that door. So surely you would assume that any unidentified stranger in Japan would be more likely to understand Japanese than Chinese. Yet she spoke in Chinese, almost as if she knew that she was speaking to her Chinese-speaking ex-boyfriend, Chen Shifeng. And so, on the 10th of January 2022, it was ruled that Liu, through her actions, had some culpability in Jiang's murder. That she essentially didn't do enough to warn Jiang of the threat that Chen had become. Remember, she hadn't informed her about all of the voice notes that she was still receiving on her commute home that night, or the texts or anything. The court ruled that Liu hadn't done enough to help Jiang to get into the apartment once the attack began, that she didn't act enough to save her life. They even publicly noted that Liu had definitely locked Jiang outside her home to protect herself, ignoring Jiang's safety. Liu was fined nearly 700,000 RMB altogether, which is basically $100,000. She had the chance to appeal, which of course she did do that, and a couple of months later, this time, Liu actually turned up to the hearing. But it was a pointless effort because the verdict was upheld. And now Liu had a problem. She had to find $100,000 quick. So what does she do? She sets up crowdfunding for the money. And believe it or not, people fucking paid. She actually raised $10,000 from this, from her supporters online who wanted to help her pay her fines. That was until the crowdfunding platform cancelled and banned her account. So she wasn't actually able to withdraw a penny of that money and use it to pay the fines. But in China, if you're ordered to pay up by the courts, you pay up. And by 2022, Jiang's mum had received all of the compensation money, which she actually donated to a local charity that helps low-income families support their kids through higher education. It was a charity that her daughter, Jiang Ge, had actually volunteered for while she was alive. And as for Liu, right now, well, she's an influencer. God help us, she is actually a fucking influencer. She's changed her name now, but she's always selling shit on TikTok Live. People gift her stuff. They're putting that cowboy hat on her and shit. She's in her Jason Nash era. She obviously receives very mixed responses from people online. She says that she still struggles leaving her house because of the anxiety, and she actually claims that she has hearing problems that she still suffers with to this day as a result of all of the crying that she did during that period of losing Jiang. Chen Shifeng, Jiang's murderer, is up for release in 2037. He will be 46 years old. And Jiang's mum plans to waste no time in suing him the way that she did Liu. After all, he was the person who went to the apartment, knife-packed, hiding, waiting, and then acting on his threats. He is the only person truly responsible for Jiang's murder. I think we need to keep that at the forefront of this. Despite Liu's cowardice and her really messed up way of speaking to Jiang's mother, even if she had locked Jiang out there, Chen Shifeng is the murderer. And to be released at 45 years old is way too kind. Men can have entire families at that age. They can restart their life as if nothing ever fucking happened. He still has half his entire life ahead of him, while he took Jiang's when she was only 24 years old. Jiang was a sweet and kind soul. She loved her mum, and she never went a day without speaking to her. She was even really close with her grandma, and she had plans to look after the two of them for the rest of her life. Jiang looked after everyone, especially her best friend Liu. When she was in need, Jiang was there. She sat waiting at the subway station for an hour to walk her home safely with a takeaway of wontons in hand, ensuring that Liu had something to eat after such a stressful day. That detail and that picture of Jiang is so symbolic of what a beautiful, kind woman she was, and it breaks my heart. Even in her final moments on this earth, Jiang Ge put someone else first. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Outlaw Podcast. Thanks so much again to Wild for sponsoring this episode of Outlaw Podcast. Remember, they're offering you guys 20% off when you use the code Eleanor2025 at checkout. You can scan the QR code on screen right now to take you there, or you can click the link down below in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a like, leave us a comment so that we can continue the conversations. Me and the team love reading the comments. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please rate us 5 stars, follow the pod, give us a thumbs up. I don't really know what they do on the different podcast platforms, but I'm willing to learn. Anyways, I will see you in the next episode. Bye!